Okay folks, we are back finishing up our section on predictive modeling, and today what we're going to do is finalize the steps to create a basic archaeological predictive model. And I'm going to show you the steps to do it inductively, and along the way I'll also describe how you would instead try to do a deductive approach. So if you recall, an inductive approach is data driven. So that means we're going to query the locations of known archaeological sites. We're going to look at the values of some different environmental indicator variables at those known locations, and we're going to use the spread of those values to create an amalgamated predictive model that will narrow down the parts of the landscape where we should look if we want to find more sites of that type. And the deductive approach is to instead start with some theory of human behavior, why people would be out on the landscape. If we know something about the kind of site that we're looking for, we would use some understanding of human behavior and logic to derive a model that again narrows down the places where we should look. But instead of relying on known sites and the data from those sites, we simply use theoretically derived values to parse up the landscape. And what I'm going to do is walk through the whole thing. Some of this you will probably already have done in Project 2 if you're sticking with the same subsample of sites. But I want to start from the beginning in case you want to change the sample of sites that you're working with. If the patterns haven't been really clear up to this point with your terrain analysis and everything like that, you may want to consider changing which sites that you're going to work with. The other thing is that we want to make sure that we have a training data set that we're going to use to build that inductive model, and we need to reserve a testing data set that is independent, that we don't use the values from those testing data points to build the model so that we can independently assess the validity of our model. And for us, we have two survey data sets, the Wadi Hassa sites, which are these ones, mostly south and west, and the Wadi Hassa North Bank survey sites, which we haven't worked with much, but which are over here on the North Bank and a little bit in the eastern part of the Hassa. So, not the most ideal sense. We would rather have perhaps the testing data set intermixed throughout the whole area, but they are independent. They're two different survey teams, and so they're in the same region, so they should probably provide a pretty good handle if we can query out a relevant testing set from the North Bank survey and build our model with the data from the original Wadi Hassa survey. So that is what we are going to do today. So the first thing that we're going to do is to query out a set of sites, and we've done this before, but I'm gonna show you again. There are multiple ways to do this in GRASS, but the way that is probably going to work the easiest is to do it either with the query builder or in a series of two queries using the attribute table manager. So I'm going to first show you how to do it. The first thing that I need to do is to create for us a new map set. So that's what I'm going to do. Now I'm going to right click on the Hassa location, create map set, and I'm going to call this predictive model. No reason to use all caps, I just had my finger stuck on that button. Okay, so I have predictive, I already have one called predictive model because I've done this multiple times. I'll just call this new predictive model. Okay, so new map set, and we are in there. I've currently loaded the raw WHS sites, and I'm going to right click on this, and now I'm going to show the attribute data. So now when I create the new vector map with just the subsample of sites, it's going to put it in this new predictive model map set, and I can just work on it from there. I'll show you with this one the original way with the builder. So we click on builder, we click SQL builder, and we get this little calculator looking tool. And of course the first thing we'll do is query by site type, and we'll get all the values. And I'm going to keep working with Nabatean towers. So I'm going to hit equals tower. And you notice you got those single quotes around tower and double quotes around site type. This is very sensitive to that kind of thing, so double clicking on there will make sure that you make fewer mistakes, but that could be something to look for if you have an error that pops up. And then I need to add a logical and. Whoops. So you're going to have my cursor in the wrong area. Cursor should be here at the end. Logical and, so click the and button. And I'm going to go down to NAB for the column for Nabatean. I'm going to click get all values, just 0 and 1, equals, click 1. Now you notice there's no quotes around 1 because numerical values don't need quotes, just text values do. Okay? And we can hit verify just to make sure that everything's good. It says SQL statement is valid. I hit apply, and it has selected all of those sites. So I hit right click, extract selected features, and I can call this Nabatean towers, and I'm going to call this training so I don't get confused later on. This is my training data set that I want to work with. Okay, so what I could do instead of this, if I was having a problem with the SQL builder, I can do this with a simple query in 2 steps. I can first query for site type equals, I have to put my little quotes, TWR, single quote, and hit apply. And then I can extract those, and I would call this all towers, and click OK, and hit close. And just to show you, so here's Wadi Hassa sites, here's all of the sites, here's all towers, and here are the Nabatean towers down there. So all towers include some towers from non-Nabatean time frames. So if I open up that attribute table, again, I've already queried out all towers. So if I look in the site type column, all of them are towers, but I have towers from all different time periods. So now I do the second stage of that query. I'll go down to the time frame column that I'm interested in. In this case, it might be Nabatean, and I would put in the value of 1 because that's the positive binary code for yes, and hit apply. And now I've got selected all the Nabatean towers, which you can see in the background, and I can right click and I can extract them and type Nabatean towers training here. Obviously I've already got that Nabatean towers training, so I'm not going to do it. But if you're having problems with the query builder, you just do it in 2 steps, okay? And in this case, what I might do is just to have a secondary test in addition to the Wadi Hassa sites. I'm going to also extract Roman towers here. So now I'm looking at just Roman towers, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to extract those. I'm going to call these Roman towers testing. Okay, so that'll be maybe one testing group that we use. Now, because the Roman period is right after the Nabatean, some of these might be the same tower, so it may be not the best testing group, but since I was in here doing this, let's go ahead and do that. The next thing I want to do is to show you, firstly, we've got all towers, Nabatean towers, and Roman towers, right? So that's what we've done so far. This is all the Wadi Hassa stuff. Let's work with the Wadi Hassa North Bank sites, which I have loaded here. Those are all of them. I'm going to right click again, just like we did before, and we're going to show the attribute data. Now, the North Bank survey data set doesn't come with any temporal information, so the best we can do is just query out by site type. So that means we really just need the simple query builder because we're only querying by 1. And again, single quotes TWR, close the single quotes, and we have our towers from the Wadi Hassa North Bank survey. Right click, extract selected features, and now we have WHNBS towers testing. This is going to be an independent test, but again, because the temporal period data is missing, these might be mixed from a variety of time frames. So again, not the most ideal testing data set, but it is what we got. And so really, if we look at between the Roman towers from the WHS and all the towers from the WHNBS, we'll probably have a relatively robust testing scenario for our inductive model that we are going to build with these Nabatean towers training set. You know, what we might want to do, first thing first, is just to see how many of these that we're dealing with. So I'll just get some metadata on it. Now my face will be in the way. And we have 52 of those Nabatean towers. You know, not the biggest archaeological data set, but reasonably robust. I would say to build an inductive model, you know, ideally we will want to have closer to at least about 100-ish sites minimum, but 50 would be a pretty good minimum. Lower than that, 25, 30, I'd be a little bit worried about the validity of the results, and even less than that, I wouldn't even bother really trying to build a model in the way that I'm going to show you. Here, I'd rather do an abductive or deductive approach, adding theory to the little data points that we might actually have. But 52 will be reasonable, and towers ought to have a fairly robust decision logic for why they're put in the places that they are, since they are fairly unique type of sites. So hopefully we'll be able to learn something about them as we move forward through here. Now the next thing that we want to do is to gather the data for our inductive model, and we need to do that in the way that you have been doing it, using that overlay query, vector update attributes v what rast. Now if you've already got a Nabatean towers vector set ready, you can go ahead and copy it over into your predictive modeling map set, and you have the values already in it, so you can kind of skip some of what I'm about to show you. But if you're starting from scratch or you want to do this again, just follow along. All we're going to do is to pick the indicator variables that we think are important for the location of, for why they're choosing the locations to where to put towers. Now in the project 3 description, which I will show you over here, you know, all of this is kind of written out. It asks you to, I think it asks you to do 4 indicator variables. I would say 3 to 4 is about minimum that you would need to build a reasonable predictive model. I wouldn't go too crazy because more is not necessarily better, and I even wrote that here. More is not always better. The most important thing is to pick variables that you think are relevant to the site location behavior that you're trying to model. So in our case, let's think that through. Slope might be important. You don't, won't necessarily want to put a tower on a really steep slope because they're tall buildings. You don't want them to fall over. So we could probably query slope. The geomorphon, the landform code, might be important because that's the way ancient people might have parsed up the landscape. Ridges, peaks, saddles, those are all high places. Maybe that is kind of a way to think about isolating those areas. That's where you're going to find towers, not down in the valleys, not in little depressions or anything like that. So we can look at doing that. Profile and tangential curvature, maybe not so much. Aspect, maybe they're looking in a certain direction, so that could be useful. Total view shed, we already looked through some of those data patterns. Maybe they're putting them in places that are hard to see or places that are visible from all over, so those might be another indicator variable that we want to look at. We have our NDVI that we queried out for towers. I think it's probably not going to be useful, but for farms I certainly would consider using the NDVI. And the other one is our climate variable, and again for farms, temperature and precipitation certainly would be useful. Villages also. For towers, probably not so much. Walking distance from stream, maybe they're also thinking about they need to get water for those tower sites, and also maybe the inverse, get as far away as from a stream as possible. So let's go with slope, aspect, geomorphon code, landform code, total visibility score, and global prominence, and maybe we'll also do the walking costs. Okay, so what we're going to do is get our VWhat_rest back up over here, and we're going to select all of those maps. And if you don't have access to the map sets, first thing you got to do is to change map set access. So go into settings, grass working environment, map set access, and then just check all of the map sets that you want to have access to. So I have a lot of stuff in here that you probably don't. Terrain analysis, least cost analysis, visibility analysis. If I wanted the climate, I would include my trace 21K, and if I wanted my vegetation, I would do that as well. But I'm not gonna bother with those in this example. For farms, for villages, or some other kind of site type, yeah, you'd definitely be wanting to include those as well. So now I can get finally into my VWhat_rest, and I can select some of those maps. So in terrain analysis, I'm just going to start with slope, and then under the optional tab, the new column, I'm just going to call it slope. And one thing you might do is to check this box about interpolating values from the nearest 4 cells, just to get a better value instead of just where the dot on the map actually happens to be. Let's look at some of the neighboring landscape cells. Okay, that's fine. We just hit run, and it's going to do that. So we've done slope. Let's do aspect, and we change the name over here. Hit run, and we're just going to step through all of the ones that we mentioned. I think what we want is where's our global prominence? Is there anything else? I don't think flow accumulation is going to be useful for this one. Some of these are calculated independently from the class. Let's go into least cost path. What we want are the walking costs from the stream. Streams and isotropic cost surface. So I'm just going to call this walking costs to streams. And the visibility should be the last one. So let's go into visibility, and remember, total view shed is the general visibility of the landscape. Now it doesn't matter which one of these you use, but you have to remember which one we chose. So I'm going to use the one that's percentage here, and I'll just call this TVS, total view shed percent, so that I remember which one. And we hit run. Okay, so let's go ahead and check out our Nabatean Towers training data, show attribute data, and make our table big, and scroll on over to the end. So here are all of our numbers over here. Now we have to analyze these numbers to come up with cutoffs that are reasonable. I forgot one. I forgot to do the geomorphon code. So let me just do that one real quick with our. Did I already close? Already closed our VWhat_rest. So let's do it again. Update attributes. VWhat_rest. Let's go into terrain analysis and geomorphons. I'm going to pick them at the 7x7 just to get a broader scale of the landscape. And this particular one, I don't think I'm going to interpolate. I'll leave that open, and I'll put this geomorphon code, and we'll hit run. Okay, so now when I show my attribute data and I scroll on over, I've got all of these things. Now the geomorphon is a categorical variable. The rest of these are continuous variables of different type. Okay, so we're going to treat them slightly differently. This one, obviously the codes are helpful, but they're not meaningful. Just the numbers themselves aren't meaningful. They only stand in for a different type of landform as classified 1 through 9. Whereas these are all values that vary from some minimum to some maximum, and the order and the distance, the interval between them actually matters. Okay, so we need to analyze these numbers, and I'll show you a couple ways to do this. Okay, first is purely numerically. What we'll do is we'll go to actually we can just go here to vector reports and statistics, and we'll find the v.db.univar. And here we can grab the column that we're interested in. Let's just pick the first one for slope, like so. Hit run on it, and it will tell us some statistics. The standard deviation, the mean, which is where is it in here? Right here. The minimum, the maximum, and the sum and some other stuff. If we select the extended statistics, we get a few more statistics to look at, including the median and some quartiles. Now, why this is important is you might want to use a statistical approach to determine the cutoffs for slope. If your brain works very statistically, maybe you can look at these numbers and just know, I'll just pick mean plus standard deviation and mean minus standard deviation. It will make 2 thresholds. My brain doesn't always work that way, so I like to look at this. So you still want to run these numbers for every column. You want to write them down, copy them into a table or something like that. You definitely want those numbers to help guide you to just make sure that your eyes are picking the right values, but you can do this graphically as well. So run these numbers for every column, but also you can install the add-on called v.histogram. I've already got it in here, but you just use that add-ons install extensions from add-ons, and then in your tools tab over here, let me move my face, under the add-ons, eventually when you restart graphs it'll show up here. So vhistogram is great because you can pick where's our Nabatean Towers training. You pick your column. Let's pick the same slope map, and leaving the dash there, it will draw the histogram, which remember are the counts, the frequencies within some bin of values. Now by default it does 30 bins, so we may want to reduce the number to like 10 to start with, and now we can see how our data is spread. The most common value is close to 0, like 1 or 2, and then it kind of dips and it goes, but then it goes steadily down. So if I was to use slope, I'd pick a cutoff somewhere close to 15. And if I'm to run, let's just run the vunivar again on that, v.db.univar, and we'll extend the statistics, and we'll do slope again. So if we recall, our mean is 9 and our standard deviation is 6, and if we add those two together we get 15. So right there where we see it leveling off, that's a good threshold. Our stats tell us that, and our visual inspection of this histogram do that. Now this is a right-tailed distribution. Can't have slope less than 0, so technically it's a Poisson phenomenon. So we would have one threshold, and we would pick the value. When I show you how to do this, would be include everything less than or equal to 15 and exclude everything above that. So we can do that all one by one by one by one, and maybe that's the way you want to work. Another way to do this is to use a spreadsheet tool like Google Sheets to calculate the histograms and also to get the statistics all in one spreadsheet. So let me show you how to do that. Right click on your Nabatean Towers training data set, go up to where it says export attribute table and hit browse and find a sensible place. I'm just going to put it into my documents for now. I'll call this nav towers stats.csv, meaning comma separated value, and I'll click save. And then before I export it, I want to go to the format tab, output format, pick CSV, field separator, pick comma. Okay, so that way the spreadsheet will just read it in without too much trouble, and everything else should be fine. So hit run, and now I can navigate on my computer over there to documents and find my where are they at? Nav tower stats.csv, right over there. Now, maybe you want to use Excel if you know how to do this, but I know for certain we can do this in Google Sheets. So what I'm going to do is to pop over to my Google Drive. I'm just going to upload that CSV right up into there. It'll take a second for it to upload, and then it'll be there as a Google Sheets doc. Because we formatted it with the commas, it reads it right in with no trouble. So double click on that to open it up, and here we have our attribute table in Google Sheets. Now we have all of these crazy time period things, and personally I don't need them in here at this particular juncture, so I'm going to just do that. I'm holding down the shift key and I clicked from all the columns. Actually, we don't even need the tower site type, so I clicked over to there. Then I'm just going to right click on the column labels, the I, J, K, whatever, and I'm going to go to where it says delete columns. So I have a cleaner database now. If I want to, I could remove extra data, but that's okay. I've got it clean enough to where we can work with. Here's our data that we want to work with. Okay, you see these columns? Each one of these is our 52, one of our 52 towers. So the first thing that I will do is show you how to do the univariate stats. So if you just highlight this thing, and you know, you've got the whole thing highlighted, what you can do is go up to data, and you got to remember how to do it in Google Stats. Maybe it's, yeah, it's data and column stats. There we go. And it should, oh, needs to add rows at the bottom. Okay. What did I just do? Fun times with Google Sheets. Hold on, go back up to the top. Okay. Let's try that again. Let's just do it individually. So I'll just put some like mean, median, standard deviation. Okay, so you can in theory calculate all the statistics in one go, but let's just enter the formula. We put equal sign and we put average with a parentheses to open, highlight all of those data columns, hit enter, and then we've got it. Over here for the median, we put equal sign median, and look, it's so smart it already wants to do it, so we just click there. And here we put equal sign standard deviation. Again, it's already smart and it does it. So now we can just copy those and paste them into the other continuous variables. And just so we know what we're dealing with, let's just make them kind of bold values so that we don't get confused. Now again, the categorical one we don't need to do those stats for. We'll do you know, something else when we get to that. Okay, so over here what we've got are our values for mean, median, standard deviation. Now let's work on the histogram. So let's highlight all the data values here, not including mean, median, and we'll go up to the top, insert a chart, and by default it will do some horrible line graph, but instead where it says line chart, We go all the way to the bottom and we find the one that says histogram chart. And then under customize, where it says histogram, we can change the bucket size. It'll automatically pick something, but you might want to do increments, in this case, of 5 degrees slope, or 5 buckets, or let's say 10 degrees slope, or 1 or 2 degrees slope. Okay, so that's showing me what I kind of want to know. And we're basically getting the same patterns, that we saw in the other tool. We would pick a cutoff somewhere around 14 or 15 to be where we put our threshold. And now we can leave that aside over here, and it's labeled slope, so we can move on to aspect. And we can go ahead and insert another chart for that, and customize the histogram, and change the increments. In this case, maybe we want 25, maybe we want to type in something like 30 degrees, which fits into 360. And now we see we might have to do thresholds inclusive. Okay, so let's keep going along with that. And again, we might want to use some of our stats to back that up. Global prominence, and customize, and let's just see what makes sense. Values like that. We can actually see we might have some inclusive value here as well. And let's do the last two, walking costs to stream. Google Sheets is smart, so it knows I want to do histograms now. Let's see. No, that was way too small. That's way too small. So let's actually go up to like 200 seconds. Something like that. Lets us see. Yeah, it looks like we have a bimodal distribution over here. So let's put that one aside, and let's do our total view shed. Let's again get our bucket size. Whoops, this has to be smaller than that, so 0.5. Let's see. No, it's got to be even less than that. 0.05. Let's go even smaller. Okay, so sort of percentage-wise, they're in very not very visible places, right? So we have the long tail over here, but a threshold somewhere around 0.05 might be the one. And look at that, mean 0.03, standard deviation 0.02. So yeah, 0.05 seems about right. And then finally we can do the geomorphon ones. We can do the same thing with a histogram, and it will show us the frequency of those things. Now there's only 9 values possible in here, so when we customize that, I think we should just choose 1. There we go. And now we have all the values. We read them over here. So code 3, code 5, code 6, which are ridges, peaks, saddles, like we talked about before. Okay, you'd have to go and look up the help file for our geomorphon to be sure of that, but I've done this before. Okay, so now we have all of our cool plots, all of our statistics. Let's just drag them up here so we can see them all kind of at the same time. And we're going to use these data to create our thresholds, okay? And I want you to write these down so that you don't forget them. I'm kind of doing this a little bit on the fly, so I'm just going to go with my memory at the moment. But pick the thresholds. So for slope we said 15, and it's going to be less than equal to. For TVS, we might want to pick something like, well, we could put a inclusive, but let's just go with the threshold of, again, 0.05. For global prominence, we want to have between, let's say, -0.5 and potentially 3.5 or so. We have this sort of bimodal here, so we have to figure out how we want to do that. Do we want to go all the way over to 8.5? Maybe we want this whole lump over here. And same thing, walking cost of streams. We have a little bit of a bimodal distribution. So we might want to say greater than 200, less than 2200, or something, you know, of that nature to capture those humps. And geomorphon code, we're just going to pick the three categories that make sense. So let's operationalize this in grass. What we're going to do is just use the raster map calculator. So let's just pull out raster calculator, our map calc, and let's start chunking through those to create binary maps that are segregating using the thresholds that we've determined. So the first thing we're going to do is to write the basic formula. If, open parentheses, map name is less than equal to whatever logical operator, threshold, comma, 1, otherwise 0, end parentheses. Okay, so that's what we're going to do for a basic one-tailed threshold. So let's go ahead and pick one of the map names. Let's pick our terrain map, slope, like so, and our threshold was 15 degrees. And now we'll call this slope binary, and we'll hit run. And what we will see once that chunks through it, what happened? Parsing, I screwed up. If slope, oh, I have map name still in there. Sorry, is less than that. Go ahead and do what we said. There we go. So now, if we do a quick little query, we have the purple being 0 and the blue, the yellow being 1. So all the areas that met our threshold are in yellow. All the areas that exceeded the threshold are in purple over there. So let's keep going. Let's look at our next one of aspect. And actually, you know what we're going to do? We'll do all of the one-tails, and then we'll do the inclusives, and then we'll do the categorical data types. So the next one-tail is going to be, we'll just do TVS, and we'll cut it off there at the 0.05, TVS percent. Okay, so let's fully delete the slope there and insert our total view shed 1000 with the percent, and our cutoff is going to be 0.05, and we hit over here, we'll call this TVS, total view shed binary. And now we have a different binary map. Let's look at our thresholds again. Okay, so we've done the top two. It looks like all the rest are going to be, we're going to have two thresholds, and we're going to do inclusive query. And so let's work with aspect. Let's go between 90 and 210. We'll just exclude the rest of them. Okay. So again, you want to take a little bit more time and care with this, perhaps than I'm doing now. But let's choose those on the fly. So now we have to alter this a little bit. If aspect is, let's see, we want it to be greater than or equal to 90, and then we have to have a logical symbol, and we have to enter aspect again. Oops. Is less than or equal to 240, 1, 0. So now that's inclusive. We're just clipping the middle and excluding both tails. And we'll call this aspect binary. We'll hit run. Let it do its thing, and we have that. Our next one was global prominence, and I think we're going to go from -50 to 850 to incorporate this little bimodal hump over here. And we could get more nuanced and do each mode independently, but I'm doing this a little quickly in that you would have to have two of these kinds of things to include the first hump, exclude the middle saddle, and then include the last hump. So you just extrapolate from what I'm doing if you really wanted that. But here, since we've already got this set up, let's go ahead and put in our global prominence, like so, making sure we delete our assets. And one thing that you can actually do, just to save yourself a little bit of time, is to copy that and paste it over, right? Now enter the thresholds properly. I said -50 to, actually it looks like probably what we really want is 0. Let's do 0 to 8. And we'll clip off the very last outlier and clip out all those ones that are kind of to the left over here. We might even have a trimodal distribution actually if I look at that closely. But either way, you know, let's work with this. G-prom, global prominence. Here we go. Okay. And then our last continuous variable is the walking costs to streams. So where's our map calculator? There it is. So let's go ahead and do that one. And that one was an LCA. Streams working cost. Copy and paste it on the other side of the equation too. Okay, now with the values that we want, let's go ahead, let's put a threshold somewhere around lower threshold greater than about 400 seconds, it looks like is a good place, and then less than about, let's go with 2200. And again, I am doing this a little bit quick and dirty here. I want you to look more at the stats and think about it before you choose these things. Walking to streams binary run. Okay, so there we have that. Notice some of these are for the whole area and some are just for the catchment, but it's not going to matter too much. And now, whoops, the last thing that we have to do is to work with our categorical variable, and we need to treat that slightly differently in the map calculator. So we're going to delete all of that, and we are going to put an if, and we're going to insert our geomorphons 7 by 7. I think that was under terrain analysis. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do is to verify which ones we want. 3, 5, and 6. And just to show you, let's go back over here real quick. Go back down into our terrain analysis to find that map, so that we have it here. And let's just put our raster legend up for that. Just put the background so we'll be able to read it okay. And now we have 3 is ridge, 5 is spur, 6 is slope. We might as well include 2, even though it doesn't seem to have a good number of them, only 5. But what's number 7? Number 7 is hollows. So, well, if we're going inductively, we shouldn't include 2. If we're going deductively, we could, okay? But let's just go 3, 5, and 6. So what we have to do is to do the same kind of thing, but now we're just going to put in the equals 2, and then we're going to put the or symbol, which is this 2 lines, and I'm going to just copy that, or that equals 5, or that looks like I missed the G when I copied it. Geomorphons equals 6. And I should have to make sure you have to have two equal signs. Now I can put my 1, 0 and close my parentheses, and I'll call this landforms binary. And let's see what it does. So there we go. We have our landforms. Okay. Okay. We are, believe it or not, we are almost there. All we have to do now is to get all of these binary maps together with that we created with the Boolean cutoffs, and we'll do that with a simple weighted average here in the map calculator. So what we are going to do is to open a parentheses, and we'll just start adding our binaries. We'll hit a plus sign between all of them. We'll just add them all up. And when we've finished that, we'll close the parentheses, and we'll put a little division sign, and then we'll figure out how many we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. To get the average, we divide by 6 over here. And this is a non-weighted average. We're weighting all of these things exactly the same. So we'll put this as non-weighted inductive predictive model. Okay? And the first thing is, before I hit run, I put 6, but you need to put 6.0 so that you can get decimal place values, because the values are going to be between 0 and 1. If we don't put the decimal point there, it'll be either 0 or 1. So we need to have that decimal point. Okay? So hit run, and there we go. Because some of our input maps were already clipped to the watershed, our predictive model is clipped, but that is okay. Let's go ahead and put our Nabatean Tower sites up there, and we will simply change the color symbols so that we can see them. Is that good enough? No, blue is not good. On this one, let's pick red. Okay, so there we have it. And if we change our legend here to be our where's our predictive model, we can see that the yellow are highly predicted locations, and the darker blues and greens are less likely predicted. These are percentages: 0% likely, 100% likely, according to the predictive model. Okay. All right. If we thought one of those input values was more important than the others, we could start to weight it. So let's say we think that the landforms are more important. What we do is we go interior to this, and we put parentheses just around the name of that map, and within that parentheses we put a little multiplication symbol, and we multiply it by 2, maybe even 3 if we want it. But for every time we multiply it, we have to increase the value there in the denominator. So now this becomes 7.0. If we had changed this, if we want to weight it 3 times, we would change this to 8.0. Okay? So since I have it like this, let's weight it 3 times. So now we have to put weighted inductive predictive model landforms, just so we know that that's what we weighted it by, and we hit run, and we will see that we will get a different result. We'll get a slightly different configuration of the space. Let's just move the towers to the top so that we can see that. As we go back and forth between them, we get slightly different results. Weighted, non-weighted, and then weighted. Okay? So the weighted map is telling it that we're gonna basically believe the geomorphons is 3 times more powerful of an indicator than any of the other individual indicator variables. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about how we would do these deductively. So instead of querying at the site points, what we would do is we would pick all of our independent landscape indicator variables. Let's go ahead down to, I got geomorphons sort of loaded in the background, so we'll start with that. And what we would do is we would look at the histogram of the entire map using that tool right up there, and we would basically see which ones are common in the landscape, but we'd also use our minds, and we would pick, in this case, peaks, ridges, saddles, spurs, right? And we would use those for the categorical one. For another map, let's just pick slope in general. We would do the same idea. We would create the histogram of the entire map, and we would look at how slope patterns across the entirety of the landscape, and then we'd also use our mind and say, well, they don't want it to be on too high slope, but they would have maybe some tolerance. Let's go with 20 degrees, right? That's our cutoff. Maybe we would go closer to 10, right? Depending on what type of site you're thinking about, what the function of the site is, what your understanding of human behavior is going to be. We could do the same thing. Let's go down to the LCA map and take a look at our stream costs like so. Pop it into the histogram of that, and we can actually see how that kind of varies across the landscape. It's a little bit weird, but we can pick a cutoff depending on where we feel. Does this site need to be close to streams? Does it need to be far away from streams, right? We would choose our thresholds, inclusive or single tail, as we wish, from our knowledge of what we think humans would choose, or a model of what we think humans would choose out there on the landscape. Then everything else would be exactly the same. We would pop through all of our binary maps with our new thresholds and combine them with an average or weighted average like so. Let us figure out how to test this. Now we have our two testing cases, and you're probably already thinking, well, why don't we just query those two maps at the location of our test sites, and that way we can essentially figure out how good our model is at predicting these independent test cases. So let's add our WHMBS towers and our Roman towers on. I'll just style them a little bit. Oops. So I'll do Roman towers, and I'll do them, guess I'll do them yellow squares, let's say. So our Roman towers are there, yellow squares, and our WHNBS towers, let's go ahead and make them yellow as well, but the symbol will be triangles. There we go. Okay, so we got our yellow triangles and our yellow squares, which are our testing data set. We have our red circles, which are our training data sets. And so let's go back into our vector, update attributes, v.what_rest, and what we will do is we will pick our, firstly let's do our weighted one with the landforms weighted 3 times. And so we'll put, I can't type, weighted model. I'll just interpolate across the nearest 4 cells, hit run. And now let's go ahead and pick our non-weighted one, and I'll put non-weighted model. Okay, and so that was our WHMBS. Let's go ahead and pick our Roman towers testing and hit run. Oops, I guess I have to do non-weighted model, and then grab the weighted model and do that. Okay, So what we have here are our two testing sites, site sets, and let's go ahead and take a look at our attribute table. There it is for the WHMBS, and we can just look already and we say we're getting pretty high numbers on a lot of these, above 50, close to 1. That means that the model seems to be working okay over here. And let's take a look at our Roman towers and take a look at the attribute table there. I'll have to scroll way on over for this one. And we have values kind of spread around, some really good ones, some less than 50. So maybe it doesn't quite work as good for the Roman towers. Okay, so let's get our stats on those so that we can be scientific about this. So go back to our v.db.univar. We've got Roman towers. Let's grab first our non-weighted model with extended stats, like so. And we can look at our mean is 0.65 and our standard deviation of 0.19. So better than 50-50, but when you add in that guy there, not the best, okay? Let's pick our weighted model and see if it did better. So in this case, we get a mean that's lower, 61, and a standard deviation that's bigger, so it actually does worse for Roman towers. Let's go ahead and pick our WHMBS, and let's start with our non-weighted model. And this one, our mean is 0.646, so still pretty good. And our standard deviation is better than even before at 0.156. So it tends to be better than about 50% for most of the input sites, and some of them it tends to be actually quite good for them. And finally, let's pick our weighted model here for this testing case. And our mean is 60, and our standard deviation is 0.17. So our weighted model actually performs not as good as our non-weighted model across the case studies that we have here. And again, if you're a little bit more thoughtful about your indicator variables, about your thresholds, you might even get better results than this. And again, this is the simplest way to do a predictive model using Boolean cutoffs. Remember, there's regression models that we can use. There are machine learning models that we could use. There are machine learning categorizations and machine learning regressions, and there's all kinds of ways that we can clean up our data, rescale our data, get better indicator variables, more relevant indicator variables, and think about how to create our thresholds and our Boolean statements or our regressions in ways that are more amenable to the way that ancient people were looking at the landscape. But for a quick and dirty model over here and a quick and dirty test, I would say this model performs pretty well. If I had to pick one, I would pick the non-weighted version that we created, and I would probably believe the WHNBS testing set a little bit better because it's more than just one period of tower sites, and perhaps it is a slightly more robust training set. So that's basically it. All you have to do for the rest of Project 3 is to save a lot of this data, show me your thresholds, show me any data tables, and show me your final maps models that you make. And again, you can choose inductive, you can choose deductive, you can do both, you can do weighted and non-weighted, you can do both like I've done here. I just want you to show the logic that you use as you work your way through it.